Alright, I'd like to get into some clip properties. This is your clip. We just clicked here on this Brixie House loop here that we're using for the tutorial. And we've got an audio clip. Now if you don't see the launch mode, the sample mode, and the envelope mode, just make sure that all three of these buttons here are on. And then you'll be seeing what I'm seeing. I want to get into these modes real quick. We'll start with the launch mode and try to tell you what each of those does. You've got the trigger mode. Trigger mode is essentially I hit this clip and it's going to play until either another clip in the same track plays or until I stop the clip. The gate mode is only going to play when I've left click on the loop, and it'll stop playing when I release it, when I release the left click mouse. So it'll be more like this. Just like that. The toggle mode basically means that when I hit play, it's going to start when I actually hit the clip, and when I hit the clip a second time, it'll stop it. So it'll be just like this. Then I'll stop it and click to start, click to stop. And that's how those three modes are going to work. Usually the best to use is the trigger mode. That's the default and it's used most often, but the other ones can be real useful. The next thing I want to get into is legato. And legato is a great function. It kind of creates more of a beat juggling type of situation. Because as opposed to when you hit one clip and then you start another clip, when legato is off, each clip starts from the very first bar. As in this, it's starting from 1 and going through. With legato on, when you switch clips, it's going to continue from where it left off. So if this leaves off on the second bar, this is going to pick up on the second bar, like this. Just like so. Whereas when legato is off, we'll go ahead and turn that off on these, you'll notice that when the clip starts, it's just going to start right from the very beginning of each clip. Just like so. And depending on the quantization, you could do a lot of different cool things that kind of emulate beat juggling a little bit. You could put it on an 8th note or something like that. Yeah, it looks like that's already set. And you can kind of juggle back and forth. Like so. So that's how legato works. Quantization is basically how and when your clip is going to start. On here it's going to start to the nearest quarter note. For defaults, oftentimes I like to set it to the bar. Like it to start on the 1 of a bar. But for beat juggling and that type of thing, quantization can be really useful and helpful. Velocity is simply how loud it's going to play something, or at least with how much intensity it's going to play a part. And I believe having it on 0 is going to give you more dynamics in your volumes and velocities. Now I want to get to follow actions, and this can seem a little confusing to people the first time looking at it, but essentially a follow action basically is the ability to tell a clip, after you play this, you could choose between playing yourself again, or going to the next clip, or randomly picking another clip within the track, going to the very last clip, or going back to the beginning. And then you could set the ratio of what the chances are that it's going to do one of two different functions. So let me show you what I mean by that. We'll go ahead and work with the second, third, and fourth clip here. So on the second clip, I'm telling it here that I want it to play again or go to the next clip. So the chances of it playing again are 2 to 1 against it playing the next clip. And I've done the same thing with this clip, and then this clip here I've set to go back to the first clip, which is the Breaksea House clip. So now when we play, it'll randomly choose different beats. Now these don't have to all be drastically different loops, and actually in some cases it's better if you've copied a few different loops, or if you've made your MIDI drums or what have you. You could just add different drum fills and things like that, and that's also really useful. Let me go ahead and play this and show you how it works. So when you hit a clip, it's just going to choose what it's going to play next, or if it's going to play something next. Go into the next clip, and then it'll probably jump right back up to the top. Just like so. So that way it can jump through different beats and things like that. So a follow action can be pretty useful for a lot of different reasons, not just drums. You can use it for a lot of random things, which is great in the session window, because while you're jamming out an idea, you can record it into, if I hit tab, over to the arrangement window and then edit it later. So you can just keep all the parts that you like. So that's basically the launch mode in a nutshell. The sample mode, a lot of cool things in here. The warp mode is kind of the secret of how everything works and how the time stretching works so flawlessly in this program. Time stretching giving you the ability to match tempo and also key of a song. Ableton probably does it better than any program that I've seen or worked with. So I'm going to go through some of these basic sample functions that you can do. This function up here, the very first button here, will actually take a whole clip and reverse it. So if you wanted to copy, let's say I'll hit Control C and come down here and Control V. If I wanted to, I can just hit reverse, and it will take this beat and play it backwards. Pretty cool. Let's get back over to here. The edit button, basically by clicking this you can actually choose an editing program, and it'll open it up within Ableton. For me, I have mine set to SoundForge, and if I can't do editing in here and I need to do more detailed editing, I can just go into this window, open up SoundForge, do the edit, resave it, and it'll resave all the work I've done back in the clip, which is great. Replace, by clicking here, it just allows you to replace whatever's in there with another audio clip. I don't use that very often, but it's a decent function. Save, basically, that's going to save everything that you're doing to your clip. So as you do editing, as you do volume edits, as you transpose, as you do panning, all that's going to be saved by hitting the save button here. So these here, having the high Q and the fade on are really a good idea, as long as your computer can handle a little bit more CPU usage. The high Q gives you a higher quality ability to transpose and time stretch your samples. The fade basically does just that. It puts a very short fade at the end of your clip. So if you don't have a perfect loop set, it's not going to have a click at the end. Oftentimes if you edit your loop incorrectly, or you don't leave it on what they call a 0 point, it's going to create a clicking sound. So having that on will correct that. Having RAM on, basically if your hard drive is too slow to be playing multiple tracks in your song and you feel that your computer's getting a little bogged down, RAM will give a different option. It will actually run that clip from your RAM memory instead of directly from your hard drive, which can smooth things out in some cases. So that's good to have. Transpose is obviously each number represents a semitone. So if I play this clip, I can transpose it down. And notice the tempo doesn't change, only the pitch. Or I can bring it up. Some very, very cool effects you can do with transpose. This here is simply going to turn the volume of your clip up or turn it down, depending on where you want it set. Very, very easy. Having your warp on is obviously going to be a good thing if you are time stretching. If you record something in live, or if you're bringing in a sample or a loop, it's good to have warp on. It'll help match it. If you know that you want to leave the tempo the same and you don't want Ableton to analyze it, then you would turn the warp off and it would just bring in a sample or whatever you're dragging in, whatever audio you're using. It would just use it as is and it wouldn't change the tempo. This here is going to multiply or divide the speed of the sample. You could double it or cut it in half. I'll go ahead and show you that. Play here. You could double it, or you can have it play halftime. But even so, it's still on tempo with the rest of the song. So that's kind of a cool feature. Your start and end, this is where your actual clip starts and where the clip ends, as you can see here. Starts at 1 and ends at 9. So that's all that is. The loop, when the loop is on, obviously that's going to allow it to repeat. Having the loop on is pretty important for a lot of functions. And the position of the loop. Easiest way to set the loop is if you get over here, this little black thing here, this is what sets the loop. So you can actually move it to where you want it. And if you'll notice the position down here, it will change accordingly. And if you go over here, you see when that bracket right there, when you see that bracket, then you can click and drag wherever you'd like. And that's your loop position. Then you've got your start point, and this is this arrow. So you could actually have a loop, let's say a 4-measure loop, but you could actually have it start on the second beat, like this. Now, you might not see that as a very useful function, but say you've got a vocal part or a drum part, you could actually copy that clip 4 or 5 different times in your audio track, and then each clip can start at a different point, and it can create kind of another juggling effect for that beat, or for a vocal part, or for whatever. So it's a pretty good function to use. Right here you see it says beats, tones, texture, repitch, and complex. These are all different ways that the program will time stretch your sound, or your drum beat, or your vocal, or whatever. And each one of these functions is going to be better for different types of tones. Beats obviously is going to be better for drums, and tones often are better for guitars or vocals or what have you. Texture is a more complex version of the tones. And complex over here is it takes up more CPU, but I've found that if I'm having trouble with the other forms of time stretching, The complex usually will correct the problem. Repitch, on the other hand, repitch is basically an ability to change the pitch more like a turntable. You can slow it down or speed it up, and it'll change the pitch accordingly. So that's a pretty cool function as well. People that have DJ'd with vinyl understand repitch quite a bit. But most the default is usually going to be on beats, and then you could set your transients to where you want it accented, and that can actually affect the quality of the sound as well. So definitely get into that and experiment with it. Loop functions, I want to show you a little bit about setting loop functions. It's pretty cool. If I'm playing this loop here, I can actually set where I want it to start, like so, and end. And I've just created a loop just by setting a start point and an end point, and I did it live. And that's really great when you're in the middle of a live set or whatever. Or if you just want to feel something out and set your loop point just by listening to it live. You can do that by set and set. And right now the quantization, remember, is still on 1 bar, so it's going to set it to the closest bar. So that's a really great function. Now I want to get into the envelopes. And basically the envelope is anything that you're going to change volumes within the clip. It doesn't necessarily have to be volume. It can, in this case, you can transpose, you can change the volume, you can do the panning, a lot of different functions. If we wanted to transpose it, we can just simply hit the transpose button here, and you could either create elbows by double clicking like so, and then you could change the pitch accordingly. If I play that, you'll be able to hear it. Going from high to low. And if you double click again, it'll erase the elbows that you make. Now if you grab the pencil tool, this, depending on the resolution, this here is the resolution, this is basically 1/2 a beat. I want to get in a little closer, you can go quarter note or eighth note or whatever. And then whatever the resolution, it'll basically quantize your selections to that resolution. So I'm messing with some of the eighth notes like so and transposing different things. So now if I play, I can actually change the pitch within, I can change it multiple times within one clip. That's a pretty cool function. And let me set this back to pretty much normal. And now I want to get into, and you could also do that, by the way, with panning and with volume. You could either use the pencil tool at whatever resolution you like to edit within that area, or you can take off the tool and double click to create elbows. Volume or panning or whatever will work like that. The linked and unlinked, I'm going to show you how this works by grabbing a single hit sound. This here is just a simple hi-hat, and I'll turn this on and I'll turn that track off. And basically we just got a little cymbal part, but we want to make a little pattern with it. So I'm going to click unlinked, then I'm going to click over here in the sample window, and that's going to show us our sample. Now I'm going to drag the loop setting. As you notice, the clip is getting faster. I want to make it, let's see, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll make it a 16th note. So now we've got a 16th note. It's just repeating because it just keeps re-triggering. And I'll stop that. And we want to make it a little more random. So what we can do is we can go into our envelope, and now, just as if it were a full length audio clip, we can go ahead and set the length here. Make maybe a 2 measure part. Then we can go ahead and edit just like we would anything else. We can edit the panning, the volume, transpose, or whatever. I'm going to do the volume here. There we go. And, oops, looks like we're in transpose. Volume. And I'm going to grab the pencil tool. Now let me stop that real quick. And then I can change the volume of each 16th. Turn some off. And I'm just choosing randomly just to show you. And now if I play, you'll hear variations in the volume. And that's a way that you can use the unlinked on a single little clip in order to create some interesting things. You could do that on loops as well. If you wanted to do it on a loop, you can hit unlinked and you could grab a certain section, or you can grab the whole thing. Although I think it's a little more useful on a single hit. So there you have it. That's how you would go ahead with that. And that's our lesson about the clips. Now the MIDI clips work pretty close to the same, but we'll get into some of the other functions in another training. Enjoy.